because I think it's important to look at what we're dealing with here, because I have a takeaway that I will save for after I show you these numbers.
Okay.
Because, first of all, here we go with the offense. So it's Buffalo all day here. Total offense, passing, rushing, and scoring. I mean, the numbers are skewed because of Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, but the Bills' offense is just so much better than the Steelers' offense. Now, the defense, I thought, okay, maybe the Steelers' defense will make up some ground on the Bills, but really, it was pretty much all Buffalo again. Total defense, the Bills have them beat. Passing, rushing, just by a little bit, but they still have them beat. And then scoring, too. But that's the interesting part right there. So the takeaway that
They
I
let up
have,
a ton of yards. Man, they let up a ton
yeah.
of yards.
So basically, I think that the Steelers have a bend but don't break mentality. As much as we talk about that with the Bills, it seems like the Steelers do that. But they give up a ton of yards, but then they can clamp down once it gets into crunch time and in the red zone. And it's interesting because last week we were saying how Miami was kind of the opposite, where, you can't really move the ball on them. But then once you do move the ball and they get in the red zone, that's where they give up their points. So it's kind of like you're working with the opposite here, where you can move the ball in the Steelers defense, at least based on these numbers, but then they know how to tighten up. Now it's huge that they're going to be missing TJ Watt, because that brings me to my final point, getting into the additional stats. This is where I think the Steelers can beat the Bills. Turnovers. The Steelers are tied for third in the league with a plus 11 turnover ratio, and the Bills are tied for 12th with a plus 2 differential. And if you remember, that's how the Steelers were able to beat the Bills in the 2021 opener with that block punt. So I think that is going to be the answer for Pittsburgh. If they want to beat the Bills are going to have to beat themselves. Josh Allen's going to have to turn the ball over. As much as we talked about how we have to ride or die with Josh being Josh and doing his thing, well, he's going to have to be very careful of that, especially if it's snowing and if it's as windy as they say, because the Steelers will pounce on these opportunities. Now, the Bills have done very well with takeaways, as you can see with this graphic, but the Steelers are very good with not giving the ball up. So that's how you see that plus 11 turnover differential. And then for what it's worth, Buffalo has the edge with sacks, and I mean, they have a huge edge with point differential. So my takeaway before we get into our score predictions, if the Steelers have any chance, it's going to come down to that right there. They're going to have to hope that Josh has 2 or 3 turnovers again. And like Chris said, Mason Rudolph is just going to have to manage the game. Najee Harris is going to do his thing. And the Steelers are going to win like a classic Pittsburgh Steeler game. Tough defense, running game, grind it out, enjoy the elements, all the cliches. I think that is going to be their route to victory. So that being said, I think if the Bills can have a clean 60 minutes of football, there's no reason why they should lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing to remember about those statistics, too, is they don't give the ball away a lot. But I think the elements help Josh Allen. He's not going to be crazy in them. I think that's the time when he's actually the best in terms of these. He doesn't have pristine conditions. It's not 70 out in Miami. It's not in a dome. He can't be as reckless. And I think when he thinks about that, I think that you would think it's the opposite to where in these sloppy conditions, you'll get I mean, I think you'll get better version of a backyard Josh in terms of, more carries in the snow. He's definitely going to carry the ball a ton, take some hits. The hits are going to hurt more on the defense too, making those hits against a huge running back. Also, like, they let up a ton of yards. You can't do that against offensive teams. You can do that against the Browning-led Bengals, at times against, the Browns, even pre Flacco. Like, you can't do that against offensive teams. You can't let up that many yards, or that the negative 20 score differential starts to creep up. So the yardage is bend but don't break, but they haven't played anybody. Seattle, a backup Baltimore team, the Bengals twice with backup quarterbacks. They really haven't played anyone since the switch. We saw this with Duck Hodges too. Came in hot. Like, seriously, they were talking about him being basically the way they're talking about Rudolph or more. And looked terrible. Like, Sean McDermott is really good against quarterbacks in the bottom 12 of the league. I'm sorry, he's playing good football. I'm not putting him in the top 15 right now in quarterback play. And Sean McDermott is absolutely really good in those situations. I don't believe that the Steelers' offense will be the reason that they win. They'd have to do something special on defense. And I just think hoping Josh Allen makes mistakes is great. Maybe he does once. It's just not the way to beat it. Like, you just don't have that special player to me to go ahead and get it done. And that's ultimately what I see. And we can minimize the 19 sacks with like a rookie defensive end. I've heard that a lot, but ultimately that's way too much. Like that's too much to overcome. Like 1 in 10 without this player. Maybe you have some decent replacement behind him, but that brings their total sack total to the bottom, towards the bottom of the league. Ultimately, it's his time to shine, but he's going to be going against a veteran offensive line, pretty veteran heavy offensive line, and it might be just a little bit too much. So we'll have to see what's done there. And their DBs have struggled throughout the season. They're back healthy, but missing TJ Watt is going to be a big factor in this football game.
Yeah, 2 points that I want to make off of that. First, with what you were saying about how sometimes the weather actually helps Josh, because then he knows, okay, I can't be as reckless. Like you said, in Miami, okay, it's 70 degrees. I can kind of have my way, just chuck some balls down the field, where a 4th and 3, that can kind of be like a long punt, even though it's an interception, So look at that 2021 playoff game versus the Patriots, when we thought, oh man, the weather, the Patriots just came here during the hurricane game and they took it to the Bills and they only threw the ball 3 times. What's going to happen in the playoffs? And then you start to see a different
Exactly.
Josh Allen, where he is just a different beast. He had 5 touchdowns, 4 incompletions, a perfect game. The Bills scored every time they touched the ball. So I'm starting to get some vibes from previous playoff runs. And if you saw the clip today that I tweeted out, when Alex Brasky of the Batavia Daily News said, Josh, it came out today from the NFLPA that no Bills are on the All-Pro team. How do you feel about that? And he goes, go Bills. And then he walked off the set. So I think that is going to fuel the fire for Josh Allen and this Bills team. And I think that as long as he does not turn the ball over, we could be in for a heater by Josh Allen.
Okay, it's time, man. Give you some real quick advanced analytics now to kind of supplement the box score stats. Obviously, the Bills have stood around the 3rd ranked DVOA for a while now, and they kind of flirted 2 and 3 all season. Dropped a little bit during that negative stretch. 3rd in the league in pass. 7th in the league against rushing the ball as well. So they've had some really good analytics, passing a 3rd and passing, 7th in rushing. You look at the Steelers, 20th in passing. I don't know if that's going to be good enough. 12th in rushing. It's still not dominant. It's not the Ravens rush offense, not even the Detroit Lions rush offense, not even the 49ers or Dolphins. They run the ball good, but 12th, it's not dominant. It's actually worse than the Bills. So I like Najee Harris. The Bills are really good against big running backs. They always have been lately, since they've started to shut down Derrick Henry's, Josh Jacobs. They're good against bigger backs. It's the A-chans of the world that do seem to nip the Bills at times. Those speed, Bryce Halls, those speed backs that can get there in a hurry. So Jaylen Warren's definitely more of a worry. We'll see if some of that's neutralized though with the wind and snow, which it might be. Like it would be for Cook, but I don't know if Najee Harris plotting. He's definitely going to get some hard yards, but he's the kind of running back that the Bills do bottle up. And I do think Mason Rudolph's got to be a little bit more special than game manager. That is not playoff football to be a game manager. Unless you think you're dominant, you're that dominant across the board, like the Ravens team was with Dilfer. Other than that, you can't be a game manager. You've got to be special than that, unless Josh really decombusts, just as totally has a horrific game. Outside of that, you cannot just be a game man. You have to be elite. You don't have to be perfect, but you need to be a little bit more than a game manager. So the Steelers offense is certainly, even with the addition there, they haven't really done too much. And then even turn the ball to the defensive side, like you mentioned, they're 9th against the pass DVOA. That's, great for that, or 6th against the pass, and 9th against the rush. So ultimately, decent and good, but they give up a ton of yards. They do buckle down, as you mentioned, when it's in crunch time and inside the 20. But those are some advanced stats. Kevin, bring us home. Give us some score predictions, for this game.
Well, the other point that I was going to make, which will transition us into my final prediction here, is I'm glad you brought this up with Chris, because if you didn't, I was going to. And that was how Patrick Peterson went on that podcast last year after the Vikings beat the Bills in overtime, thanks to that Patrick Peterson game-ending interception. And he said, I knew where the ball was going because Gabe Davis only runs the same 3 routes. So I got to thinking about that. And it's interesting because they've been lining up at corner and safety. And now with Gabe Davis with that PCL sprain, whether he plays or not, this is a very stingy defense. And off of my point about the turnovers, when you have someone like Patrick Peterson, a veteran presence, And Levi Wallace, who used to play with Josh Allen and this Bills defense, they are going to know what the Bills want to do. I just have that feeling it's going to be one of those tough, grinded out games. I don't think it's going to be a 38-3 shellacking like we saw last year, especially with the weather. So I think we will see some of those plays, but I think Josh is going to be very smart. And to my point earlier, he is going to go on a run here, and it starts this week against Pittsburgh. So I have Buffalo winning 27-17.
Okay, 27-17. I think that's fair. We'll see if they can get that high scoring with the elements. As an update right now, Sunday during the day, windy with occasional snow showers, high of 24, so not freezing, but cold. Winds west-southwest at 20 to 30 miles per hour, which I hope it sticks around more than 20, because then I think that factors Rudolph, but I don't think it factors Josh. We'll see if his accuracy for Rudolph, even with his big arm, we'll see how that looks. Chance of snow 60%, so it's not crazy high, not in the 80s. Not 90% snow, and only 1 to 3 inches. So we'll see. The more wind that's possible, but not getting crazy like the New England game was like 40 mile per hour winds. We want to keep that right in the 20 range, because then I think it affects them and not the Bills. So we'll see how that determines in this game. I'm having a tick lighter than you. I just don't think they have the weapons that you need. Like, this isn't a regular season game. This isn't going down to Jacksonville with Sleepy on a Sunday, 6-6, Jacksonville, whatever. This is the playoffs. You need your big guns, and they're missing their biggest one. Their essential quarterback just plays defense, 19 sacks, probably defensive player of the year or second. Just disrupts games and will get your offense back the ball, essentially an offensive player. So ultimately, huge loss, regardless of how maybe a rookie is playing behind them. Ultimately, I don't know that that's going to help them enough, but I have it a tick lower scoring than you just because of the weather elements. I got 24-14. The Bills have held everybody to 16 points lately over the course of the last 7 weeks. Their yardage has been 275 yards a game. I mean, they're just doing good things against top offenses. I'm sure he'll have a drive. Najee Harris will be running, and everyone will be like, he's running down our throats. And I'll hear that at least once. I swear it'll happen. If not, they don't have any chance. But if you don't say that at least once, I'd be shocked this week that he's running down our weekend side, and then all of a sudden they'll stop him like they do every third quarter that they have lately. Until they don't do that anymore, I'm going to think that just because he has a good second quarter drive or first quarter drive, that they won't be able to stop Najee Harris. The Bills are absolutely going to kick off and give him the ball and show what they have. Put your script. Also, put your best plays out early. That's what the Bills make you do. You're going against the Bills. They make you press, and they make you want to go beat them early. And you'll see some success, but you've also used your scripted plays and your best plays. It's like, when you have a trump card in your hand in euchre or any game. Ultimately, you've played your hand now. Now you need to be really good, because the Bills now know some of your better plays. I don't know that the Steelers' offense is holding anything back for the fourth quarter with Mason Rudolph. That's what I mean. Can he be a game manager? Sure, but are they going to try to get ahead and you utilize all their cards? And yeah, you'll see some field goals, some touchdowns against the Bills defense, but the Bills will then know what you're doing, and they adjust real quickly with their disguise coverage, just like the Steelers do. And I just think the Steelers just don't have enough pieces on this roster. But it is still a very decent looking roster. I just don't think they have enough to get it done.